Hi, folks. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another session of the Writing for Your Life Second Tuesdays Writer Discussion Group. Thanks so much for joining us. This evening, we have the pleasure of being joined by Brent Bill. Brent is going to be talking about identifying guiding words to remind us why we write. So Brent is a writer, photographer, retreat leader, writing coach, and Quaker minister. He's written many different wonderful books. The most recent is Hope and Witness in Dangerous Times. And he's written many other short stories and articles. He graduated from Wilmington College in the Earlham School of Religion, which is in Indiana, where Brent lives. He's worked as a local church pastor, denominational executive, seminary faculty member, and go-kart track operator, which has got to be one of the most interesting of those, or most fun at least. So he lives in a location outside of Indianapolis called Plowshares Farm, which is 50 acres of farmland that's being reclaimed for native hardwood forests and warm season prairie grasses. The great Midwest prairie, where I grew up as well. So, Brent, maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of that along the way here, but
sure.
Thanks so much for joining us.
That's my pleasure. Happy to be here.
So I'm going to hand it over to you. Feel free to, take it from here.
Well, it'd be good to hear who all's on the call, and I'd be curious what kind of writing you like to do.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, should we call on folks, kind of go down the list?
Sure, that'd be fine. You want to handle that?
Sure. I see first up is Barbara Pinckney. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, good evening. Yes. I'm enthused I write fiction. I like inspirational fiction. I like drama, and I like the religion as far as the Christian, I like the stories to have endings that's inspirational and uplifting. Although I can go to another level of the story. It appeals to both. I want it to appeal to a wide, range of people, not just people that are Christians. That's what I'm trying to say.
Where are you calling from?
Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Ooh. Wonderful. Peggy, you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Peggy Turpin. I'm calling from Central New Jersey. I'm in Monroe Township. Yes, Monroe Township, New Jersey.
Oh my gosh, we're neighbors.
Yes, I just finished, I guess, my first manuscript. I'm writing a memoir. I had a miraculous event experience in 2018. And at the time of that event, that experience, the Lord charged me to write a book about him, his goodness. So that's what my memoir writing is about. And I finished it. Now I'm at the place, how do I proceed, to get an editor and all of that good stuff that's given me anxiety. See, I'm jacking up, but yeah, so that's where I'm at. And if I could just say, Brian, again, I thank you for this platform. I've been going into the recorded stuff, and my socks is being blessed off. So that's it. That's what I'm doing.
Well, thank you. I'm glad it's helpful, but I'm always looking to see what else I can do. So if any of you have ideas for how we can improve, writing for your life and publishing in color, or any of the things that, I'm involved in, please let me know.
Mm-hmm.
But glad you're here.
Yes, thank you. Glad to be here.
So Kim, would you like to go next?
Hi, I don't know why I'm not on video. I must have done something wrong.
I can see you.
You can see
me.
We
can see you.
Okay, I can't see you. No, I can see you, but I can't see my picture. So I'm a memoirist, spiritual memoir, and very interested in nonfiction, and very grateful for the platform and for all the information that I'm finding. Thank you.
And where are you zooming in from?
I'm from southern New Jersey.
Oh, goodness. My goodness. I didn't realize such a New Jersey.
A bunch of Garden Staters.
Wow. We're taking over the world. All right. Good. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Karen, how about you?
Hi, I'm Karen, and I live in Minnesota. So I'm in Minnesota. Yeah, I am a ELCA pastor and a spiritual director. I write sermons and devotions. I'm just working on some thoughts around devotional work, book around second half life, coming out of raising children, empty nesting, that kind of. So just working on it. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Good.
I'm curious where you went to seminary.
I went to Luther Seminary in St. Paul.
Okay. One of my friends from college went there,
Okay.
who was a Lutheran pastor. And I went to a rival school for one semester. I
What
was
was
one
that?
of 3 Quakers there, Trinity
Oh, nice.
Lutheran
Oh,
in
yeah.
Columbus, Ohio. The very
Yes.
first year that it merged with
Oh.
Hama. Yeah.
Oh, pretty recent.
The
Yeah.
big theological discussion that year was whether we were allowed to have coffee in the classrooms.
Oh, my.
Because the German Lutheran said no and the Swedish Lutheran said yes.
Oh, interesting.
Go
Well, did you
Swedes.
get to? Yeah. Did you get to drink
No,
coffee?
we didn't.
That's so
No.
bad. That's so wrong.
I know.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
Good. Well, thank you, Karen. So let's see. Nancy, how about you? How are you?
Good. How's everybody tonight?
Good, good.
I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. And a friend referred me to this group. She's an editor, and she has been to many of the Writing for Your Life and Publishing in Color conferences, and she highly recommended. So I don't want to be long-winded or anything, but when I was in high school, I used to just write in a journal, and I would just write fictional stories. And as I got to be an adult, I think I thought that was not something that would benefit me in life. I'm a teacher now after 20 years. And so I've just recently, I had a health scare last year during the pandemic. It wasn't COVID, and I started just writing these devotionals while I was waiting in my doctor's office every day. And somehow it turned into a year's worth of devotionals, and I've been trying to figure out what to do with them. And my friends and family are saying, you should put this together and make a book or something. And I feel like I've come full circle from when I was in high school thinking I couldn't really be a writer. And now all of a sudden I've written a year's worth of stuff and interested in doing it again. So it's kind of both. I think somebody else said, maybe it was you, Barbara, about spiritual and fiction, because I really like fiction and I think I could do it, but I don't know how to start. I don't even know where I would begin. I mean, I have ideas, but it's like, how do you put that together to make a book that somebody would be interested in reading? So, but thank you for this group. Thank you for.
Sure. Glad you could join us, Nancy, and glad that your friend recommended us. So let's see. The last person I think that we haven't heard from yet is Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, sorry it's a few minutes late. My name is Sarah, and I write mostly poetry, and thankful to be here. I publish books on Amazon with their self-publishing, and I really like it. And I just published a few this fall, like some best of collections. And that's all. Thanks, everyone.
Well,
and my pen name is Refried Bean. I write under a pen name, Refried Bean.
That's why I wanted you to tell folks. Refried Bean. Look it up on Amazon. Sarah's got hilarious books. So I hope you check them out.
Thanks.
Good. Well, thanks, everyone. And just remind everyone this is being recorded. So, the folks that aren't able to join us in real time will be able to access this later on. So anyway, Brent, go ahead.
Sure. Well, as Brian said, I've been writing for quite a while. My first book actually came out in 1983, and it was on rock and roll, of all things. And so over the years, I've written in a variety of genres. I did a whole series for a publisher on light humor for youth. And then about 17 years ago, I started writing spirituality based in the Quaker tradition for non-Quakers. People always seem to be somewhat interested in this, our little quirky group of Christians, or think that we're just about oatmeal, which actually oatmeal has nothing to do with Quakers. That's owned by a bunch of Presbyterians. We never did own Quaker oats. But in each of those, I was always working, although I don't think I would have called it that back then. I wish I'd have heard this piece of advice, but working with guiding words, things that were directing me. And a few years ago, I was putting together a course that I was going to teach at our seminary, Earlham School of Religion in Richmond, Indiana. And it offers an MDiv, Master of Divinity in Writing as Ministry. And I was one of the profs there, and putting together a book on, or a course on writing from the heart, soulful writing. And I joke, John Prine once had a song, he has a song where the line is, all my friends turned out to be insurance salesmen. Well, all my friends turned out to be writers or musicians for some reason. I wanted to be one of those two my whole life, and all my friends are that. So I started contacting my friends, and I said, what advice would you give people who want to learn to write from the heart? And they gave me a whole bunch of stuff that I've used over the years, but one that really stuck with me, and please forgive my camera, my regular camera conked out on me. I had to plug a little one in tonight. It keeps zooming in and out. But one is a fiction writer named Minnie Lamberth. She's not very well known, but she's written 6 or 7 works of fiction. And she's the one who said the advice she would give is identify some words that help you remember why you are writing. Pick your own guiding words. And so I'm going to talk a bit about that tonight, but I also hope you have something to write with, whether it's your computer or something, because I'm going to give you some questions and maybe even let you play around with what you think your guiding words might be, because they have to be unique to you. One thing I would say right off is don't think of guiding words as a GPS. They aren't going to get you the exact place you want to be in the sense of add this word here, expand on this thought, or that sort of thing. They're more like a compass, which is one of my favorite analogies also for the spiritual life. Too many of us want GPS, where most of us use a compass to get where we need to go in our spiritual life. We're trying to follow God, and that's our guiding principle. I always like to phrase it, going towards the face of a loving God. And so our guiding words are like that. They just help us keep on track and give us a check about how are we doing at getting where we think we're going. Another is, most importantly, that guiding words need to come from your heart. not from your head. It's too easy for those of us who are writers to let our guidance come from our head, worrying about audience, worrying about the publisher, those sorts of things, and forgetting that our first audience is ourselves and what we're going to learn while we're on this adventure of writing. I had a friend who once said that writing is a form of worship and prayer, and I like that idea. It's an offering, and so it needs to come from our deepest part, our heart, because for one, and I really believe this, if our guiding words come from our heart, then there'll be power in the words that we use as guiding words, and there'll be power in the writing that we do as well. Something that resonates truly with the reader. Many of us can probably be really fine technical writers and churn out something, but it may lack a certain essence that connects with the reader. It's kind of like those of us who have ever given a sermon know when we're not connecting and begin to wonder, okay, my wife used to give me hand signals when I preached. And one was this, and it meant you're talking too much from your head. Of course, another one she used to give was, you're off track again, but we too often go into our head. So to think about where the power is. One of my most helpful editors is a woman named Lil Copan, and Brian knows Lil. And she really helped me when I wanted to write more books or articles or short stories that really connected with people. And we were talking one day and she goes, Brent, you're a really good writer. I puffed up because who doesn't want to hear that from an editor, especially your editor? And she goes, would you like to be a great writer? And it's like, yeah, how do you answer that? I mean, the only answer, I'm from the Midwest and we like to say, well, that's good enough. How are you doing today? I'm pretty good. But do you want to be a good writer or a great writer? Well, I want to be a great writer. And she goes, well, you've got to write more from your heart. You've got to stop guarding yourself from the reader too much. It's not a matter of being overly revealing, but she goes, you get to a point where you almost let the reader into what you're writing and then you pull back because you play it safe. So if you use your heart isn't always safe. So your guiding words need to come from your heart. So one of the things I try to do at the beginning of most any piece of writing is to write down what guiding words I'm going to use for that piece. And so I would encourage you, and we'll try this exercise in a minute. I'm just going to go through these things, but we can have general guiding words, but I think it really helps. There's my goofy camera going nuts again. That it really helps to think of a specific piece of writing that you're doing or plan on doing, or that you would like to dare to do instead of playing it safe. I have in my current writing now, in almost all my projects, since I write primarily nonfiction, one of my guiding words is pilgrim for me. As you can tell, I'm an old guy, and I grew up in a time when religious writing was very authoritarian. The voice who knew everything and therefore had, I hate this camera, had to show you just how smart they were. And it was always, it didn't connect at a lot. There were lots of ideas, but it didn't really much connect. And, one of the things I've learned is, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I think I know a few things, and my life experiences have taught me some things. But what I have to offer is me and my voice, how I'm going to sound. And so this idea of pilgrim writer, somebody who's traveling alongside the reader as a fellow, not somebody who's necessarily the guide way out front or anything else, but just someone else who's on this same journey through life is one of my guiding words. Another one of mine for me is accessible. I need to write so that whoever picks it up can understand what it is that I'm trying to say. Well, I do know big words like Heilsgeschichte and other things that I learned in seminary. I've only got to use them once in a book, and that was kind of as a joke. Just a kind of dig at my more theological friends. But to try and make what I have to say easy to be understood. And writing easy isn't always easy, but that's one of my things that's accessible. And here I come zooming in again. Good heavens. Another one is hospitable. One guiding word for me is to be welcoming. That if somebody picks up a piece of my writing, they feel welcomed into it. And that also includes how I express ideas for me in being hospitable. And going along with that is that my a guiding word is invitational. I mean, we can invite people and not be hospitable once they get there, but I want to invite people into the work and then be hospitable once they get there. So those are just some words that I use in general with my writing. Now, my voice may change depending on the piece. For example, my last book, Hope and Witness in Dangerous Times, is a little bit more, it's not quite as whimsical as some of my other spiritual writing. For one, I was limited. It had a very specific word limit, 20,000 words, 88 pages is how it came out, because it's part of a series that this has to fit in. So I needed to fit what their phrasing and all sorts of other things were, where generally I have, a larger space and it's easier to be more my, I think a humorous self, to be a little more whimsical. So there are some questions that I'm going to offer in case you want to write them down. That could help you come up with guiding words. And the first question to help find a guiding word is, why is this piece of writing important to me? A second question, and I ask this one more and more all the time, is what is the source, the inspiration for this writing? And as part of that, I ask, is this internal? Is this coming from my heart? Is it coming partly from my head? Is it even coming up from my body? Paying attention to body language, which is something writers don't do enough. Our bodies, I believe, are great carriers of spiritual wisdom, and they can tell us when we're doing something really important or really dangerous or really happy, and to pay attention to that. Another question is the source for this something external? Is somebody else pushing me to do it? Or is it a need I see that's outside of myself? An example of external, someone else pushing is, I'm a fairly, because I'm a writer, I'm a fairly public Quaker. So a lot of, not that there are very many Quakers in this world, but a lot of my Quaker friends are activists, as I consider myself an activist, and we all have our causes, and each one of my friends will call me and tell me what I should be writing about. And there was a time I wanted to please that, and so would try to do it because I felt obligated. I didn't want to let my friends down. And yet, no matter how I saw that need, it really wasn't my calling. That wasn't mine to do. And so if I feel too much external pressure to find guiding words, I also step back and say, is this somebody else pushing me to do this, or is it something I feel called to do? Somebody, I think it might have been Barbara who said, or maybe it was Peggy, said that they felt like God had them, write this piece. And so that's part of it, is where I'm not seeing God as an external force in that sense. Quakers, part of our thing is we believe that God is constantly talking to us in our souls. And so it behoves us to listen. Another guiding piece or guiding questions piece later on is, so who's my truest self to write this? So using genre again as an example, when I write fiction, my truest self's a storyteller. So what guiding words does a storyteller need to use? And in my case, one of my guiding words when I'm doing fiction is it needs to be entertaining. Nothing is worse than a boring story, that doesn't capture you. Another is, again, is a writer in the Religious Society of Friends, as the Quakers are called. People call and say, would you write some Sunday school curriculum or whatever? And so that's part of, in that case, it's my teaching self more than my fellow pilgrim self. So, what guiding word would I use for that? It'd be knowledge in some ways. What pieces of knowledge do I have to impart about this in a way that I don't in my other writing? Another thing that helps me come up with guiding words is to ask the question, who am I writing this for? Because that helps me think about what their expectations might be as they pick it up. and how to communicate with them. So communication, words about communication come in there. And even though I say, who am I writing it for? Another kind of question is, who do I hope will read it? I might have in mind who I'm writing it for, but who do I hope will read it? And how does that guide me? An example of that is a few years ago, I had a son-in-law, both my parents and a son die within 4 months of each other. And somebody approached me about writing a book for grief. And I thought, well, I'm living it. What would I want to hear? You know, as I thought about who do I hope will read it, I began to think, how could I approach it even? What would be a guiding word to help me get through it? Because it would be too easy to just do it out of my own grief and not be helpful. Finally, because that was something where it came from somebody else asking me if I would consider doing it, I finally said no, because it didn't align with where I was. And as somebody who, well, I've almost always had a job until the past few years and am now retired. Man, I hope my teeth are clean, the way that camera keeps. It took a long time to say, no, I won't write that, just because, you know, we freelance writers, we want to see ourselves published. And so another guiding word for me is writing, or it's more of a phrase, is, will I be proud or happy to see my piece in that publication 5 years from now? So those are some questions. And so I wonder if you'd like to take just a couple minutes and think about a project you're working on and see if you could come up with just a couple guiding words for yourself. They have to be yours, not somebody else's. Would you like to try that? Okay, let's take 2 minutes to come up with a couple guiding words. And then we'll talk about what that was like. So I'm kind of curious, what was it like to try and come up with some guiding words? Anybody can chime in at any time.
Well, for me, the things that you shared, the questions were right on point. As you were sharing your journey with your words, it was like you were speaking my thoughts, but it was difficult for me to put it in my word because I tend to stay with the chatter in my head a lot and trying to choose words that tie into what you're asking me to do, which is a big part for my writing. You know, I've been told that when I speak or I write, I'm very passive. My writing sounds passive. So as I'm writing, those things stick in my head. But if I can give my guiding words quickly, the first word I would use, it's not a word, it's God himself. It's been 3 years that I've been struggling to write this book. And I keep saying, you know, I know that it's God that told me to do it and I can't shake it. I can't put it down, but I feel almost like I'm stuck because I'm being disobedient. I'm not doing it. So I said God first because that's where the inspiration comes from to write it. And then my thought was hope. I know my calling is to be a giver of hope. So, you know, so I keep that in the forefront. That keeps coming to me. Encouragement, walking beside God's people, not necessarily those who believe in God, but God's creation, all of humanity. I want anybody to be able to pick up the book and be inspired by the book and preferably even receive Christ as their Lord and Savior. So that's it. And love. I have a love for people. I don't like to see people in pain because I know what my life was like when I was experiencing pain. So going into my heart, which is key for me, with that you said, going into your heart, being my authentic self is what's very important to me. And again, and not be that person that knows it all. So I try to get on the path, pretend, you know, as I'm writing it, I'm trying to see me reading it also for myself. And hopefully, you know, when it goes to editor, they'll be gentle with me, but give me what I need. So thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
Well, I think I agree. It was when you spoke, it was easy to think about words or listen to you and think, oh, that's a good word. And then when it came to finding my own, it was it got a little more in the head. Yeah. And how, but I think for me, what I want to write is really coming from what I have experienced and what I really want others to understand and come along with. So for me, it would be to be authentic because my writing is pretty, I hear usually it's very, it seems more vulnerable than it is factual. So and relational, and that in a way is a companion alongside. And being also a spiritual director is really, you know, it's a very contemplative position in life. And so I wanted to also include a sense of going internal and spending time with God in the writing.
Okay.
So thank you.
I don't want it. And anybody else before I start? Okay.
Well, then another Karen. I'll start after you.
Okay. Good.
No, go ahead. You go and then I'll go.
Okay. Well, I don't want to be too long, but my inspiration from my work does come from life experiences, my family's experiences. I know I'm writing from my heart. There's no doubt about it. I can actually feel myself inside of my stories. In fact, an example of that is I wrote a little novella. It was a novella because it wasn't a full word novel, which I'm working on now. But anyway, in the story, the character was a matriarch of the story. She was one of the matriarchs. And I let her transition to death. And I actually cried while I was writing her funeral. That's how much I was in it and how my heart was actually in it. I love entertainment. I love to write. I have a lot of things to draw from before I found salvation. So those things are my inspiration. Some of my words are like some of the words you used, Brent. Communication, forgiveness, a strong foundation, inspiration, hope, all of those words. And I have all of those words on my heart because I had to myself go through things in order to feel what I'm writing. But I don't do memoirs and I don't do nonfiction because I like to entertain a lot.
Thanks. Karen?
Yeah, there's a couple of us Karens here, and we're the good Karens, just to say. I feel like I have to say that these days, you know?
Yeah.
I was really struck by what you were saying in terms of, I'm also a pastor. I present the word every weekend, every Sunday. And I think the struggle I have with the question, one of the questions you asked was, who wants to hear the word I have to say? And that's my struggle, because that kind of is my demon a little bit, because I think nobody wants to hear the word I have to say, because the word I want to share is about being a legally blind woman, preacher, pastor, trying to survive in a sighted world. Mm-hmm. And I feel like because I'm such a minority, that the sighted world doesn't want to hear what I have to say, and the blind world isn't that big. So I don't know if it's like the devil kind of whispering in my ear saying, oh, nobody wants to hear that. Or if I just need to be persistent, because I feel like God put me in this place. I've been a pastor now. I've been in this congregation for 5 years, but I've been a pastor for 34, 36 years now, pastor and chaplain. So I really struggle with that. Is the word I hear, is the challenge, the question I hear, is that a question I hear from God, or is it a question I kind of hear from the antithesis, you know, saying, no, nobody wants to hear that word. None of the people in the world that you live in want to really hear that word. So I really struggle with that. It's a great question. Who wants to hear the word that I have to share? And I feel like nobody wants to hear it. So I don't know, that kind of, and then that stops me in my tracks. So then I don't do anything. So that's my struggle.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Hi, my name is Nettie. So mine is a little different. I actually used a quote from, I think, John Hope Franklin, and I think it was hearing or telling the untold story about African-American history. Mm-hmm. And he sort of says, go to the highways and byways and discover these things. So that kind of is, because I'm doing a genealogy kind of book. So that kind of set it up for me. And I'm kind of conversely different in that I did workshops to try out the material. And one project we did with Ohio Historical Society, we had people calling in trying to get online for the workshop. And in the end, she told me they had like 3,000 people on Facebook. So I guess for me, the issue is not, there's a group that wants to hear and participate in that their own personal research and to learn from people who are doing that work. So for me, the teacher part fits, but it's more of, I think more, I really wanted to be more of a facilitator, because we really want people to do their own research and not just hear, me talk about discoveries, but I wanted them to, through this experience, discover their stories and tell their stories. So it's the action part is getting them to embrace a research model that helps them find their people and find their stories and find their miracles and their families, and tell them, and retell them. So that's kind of how it sort of shapes up for me. So I guess for me, I always thought it was a calling to do it, because I found my ancestors, like the first hour of my research, I found my great grandfather and my grandfather and his brothers, and like this untold number of people. My great great grandmother, who was born in like 1830. I found them all together in Ohio and Claremont County, like in my first hour of research on the census, which is like unbelievable, fine. So I always felt, and I remember asking the Lord, why was a Sunday school teacher who was a teacher of life looking at the records of the dead? I remember posing him that question, you got me on this path of genealogy, which I was always interested in, but what was that? I posed that question that night because I knew it was going to take me on a journey that was going to take some time. So I think that was, yeah. So that was that.
Does anybody else want to share? Because I have some follow-up comments I can make about what people have said, if that would be helpful. But I want to see if anybody else has something to.
I'll go ahead. My situation is a little bit unique, I suspect, because I'm not a writer of books, like you all are. But the main, I think, most important writing that I do every week is all the emails that you all get. Mm-hmm. So there are 4 different email newsletters that I put out, each one every 2 weeks: Writing for Your Life, Publishing in Color, Compassion Christianity, and How to Heal Our Divides. And so the most important thing that's always at the forefront of my mind when I do that is nourishment. That's my number one goal, is to nourish those audiences, and the second word is value. So something that's useful, right? That you can actually apply and use and think about or act on or whatever. So nourishment and value. And then the third one is diversity. So it's really important for me to have a diversity in multiple dimensions, race, gender, topic, format. So those are the 3 things that, I think of the most when I'm trying to do that type of writing.
Sarah?
Yes. This is a really cool experience. I learned so much from what other people shared and from the activity itself. I started off with words when you're first explaining it. I started off with words like religious humor and Christianity and stuff like that. And then when I started thinking about it more, I ended up thinking of words like gentle and humble. And that made me think of Bible verses. So it's like a different level of thinking about it. So it made me think of the verse from Matthew, take my yoke upon me because I'm gentle and humble in heart, and I will give you rest for your souls. It made me feel like that could be behind my poems in some way. So thank you so much.
Okay, is there anyone else?
Well, one of the things I heard a couple people talk about is authenticity. And I think that that's a really good guiding word because for one, I think you have to ask the question, what's it mean for me to be authentic? How does this really reflect who I am? Because people, when they read our work, they hear our voice, whatever they imagine that voice to be, and they have this image of who we are and how we move through the world. And is it truly authentic to who we are in our daily life, including the hard things? Or is it all just sweetness and light? Does it, are we willing to share our wrestlings? And for me, that's part of the authentic question. I needed to be authentic to who I am. And part of it for me in this day is the place I live on this farm that I've lived for almost 20 years, and the grasses and stuff, I'm kind of rooted to this place at this point. So it works its way into my writing. as a natural sort of thing. But again, the being authentic, and for me, that I am an imperfect being. I even wrote a book. One of my books is Life Lessons from a Bad Quaker. It's not that I'm got bodies in my trunk or anything. It's just I'm not very good at being good. And so that book was a book that was pretty honest. Another thing I heard somebody talk about, it was Karen Moritz. I hope I said that last name right. About that's the voice we all hear, I think. Who am I to do this writing? I mean, we're all probably readers as well. And so we read a really good piece of writing and think, why do I even try? Or we hear, in my case, Grandma Bill's voice. Well, that's really nice, but why don't you get a real job or something like that? But one of my favorite quotes about why each of us should write, and I think it's really important, is from the Pulitzer Prize winner, Richard Rhodes, which many people haven't heard of today, but he wrote some amazing things. And this is a quote I really like. It says, if you want to write, you can. Fear stops most people from writing. I'm going to say that again. Fear stops most people from writing, not lack of talent, whatever that is. Who am I? What right have I to speak? Who will listen to me if I do? And then he continues, you are a human being with a unique story to tell, and you have every right. If you speak with passion, many of us will listen. We need stories to live, all of us. We live by story, and yours enlarges the circle. So you have every right. So try and silence the voices as much as you can that say, who are you? And my story seems to have a narrow focus. Well, it does because it's uniquely yours. But if you tell it with passion, others will be interested in it. Another guiding word for me is conversational. I need my writing to be conversational. And that helps me keep my voice. When I first started writing, I was writing a lot of fiction, and I was also reading a certain fiction writer at that time. And it seemed like all my stories sounded an awful lot like Kurt Vonnegut and a very bad Kurt Vonnegut. It wasn't my voice at all. And what my voice was came home to me one day when one reviewer wrote about one of my books, said, reading Brent Bill is like having a neighborly conversation over a cup of coffee around the kitchen table. And I thought, now that's the voice I want to maintain. Conversational is important for me. And so whenever, this is more in the editing, when I go back to edit, I start saying, now, is that how I really say that? If, say, Brian and I were sitting down together and just chatting, would I put it that way? Or would it somehow be more accessible to him? How would my body language and relaxed attitude come across, even if it's something I feel very intensely about? How would I put it out there? Because we're friends and I could say that to him in a way that he really hears it. A friend of mine, Karen Berquist, another Karen for the group. She is part of a singing group called Over the Rhine. If you don't know them, you might check them out. But she has a line in one of her songs said, come and put your elbows on the table. We'll sit and talk as long as we are able. And that's kind of what one of my guiding words is, that kind of conversational that's easy. She goes on, pour me a glass of wine. We'll talk deep into the night. Well, that's my kind of conversation. I like that. Just relaxed and talking about it. Another one of mine, and I would urge you to consider, is how is it grounded in daily life as opposed to big ideas? And Karen T said that, she's writing about, common life, empty nester, aging. Those are her experiences unique to her, but how she will share them if she's grounded in daily life as opposed to the big ideas that we can pull off the internet about how to be an empty nester or whatever, is going to make all the difference, her voice and what she has to share. So I'm going to give you a list of words again, and then you can answer the question for yourself. What would it be like for me to be this way? So the first one again is, what would it be like for me to be invitational in my writing? For me, not for Brent, not for Sarah, not for Nettie, but what for me would it be like to be invitational? The second is, again, what would it be like to be hospitable? The third is accessible. And that's an important one, I think, because any of us who have outside jobs or worked in outside jobs have jargon or sorts of things that we use in our business that's inaccessible to other people. Even Quaker language for, we Quakers know what we mean when we say things, and nobody else has a clue what we're talking about. And I've been trying to help our congregations quit throwing initials around in our slang that we all know what they mean, because it's not accessible. So what language of yours isn't? Another guiding word for me is fierce. I really want it to matter. Is there some fire under this? If there's not, and the way Richard Rhodes kind of put it is passion, if it doesn't matter to me, if I'm not passionate about it, if it's not fierce, who else is going to care? And I did mention the authentic already. What's it mean for you to write authentically? How do you ground it in your daily life? So those are just some ones that I'll offer, and then you could fill in the blank for you, how that plays out in your life. And now I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to be quiet and see where you want to go from here. If you have questions, or if you're ready to go take a nap, or where we go next.
Again, Brent, I thank you for all of this. And I love what you said, when you said what Rhodes said, because the fear of taking this book to an editor, being able to receive the criticisms or, corrections or whatever, that's a big thing for me. And I have this melancholy temperament where I want to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. So that's a struggle for me. Moving out on my own to find the editor and go through the steps and, be a good steward over what God has given me as far as finances. So those are the things that stops me. And, even from my young days when I was in college, my professor always told me I needed to write. And this has been years, because I'm a young 67 right now. And as I'm writing this book, I'm saying to myself, Peg, you're really loving this, but it's getting past that fear of who want to hear what you have to say, you know? And so that's my dilemma. And if anybody want to chime in or reach out to me and give me some, some direction. I've written it, but I don't know where to go from there. Do I get it copyrighted? How do I find the editor? And how do I know I'm not being taken advantage of? Now, I reached out to some people that I'm familiar with. I won't call any names. And it's like, well, you give us $14,000. We'll get you published. We're guaranteed this. And I'm like, I keep hearing you don't pay somebody to accept your book. That's something that comes up in the end. So those are the things that I'm dealing with now. And so, somewhere along the line, Brian, that might be something we can talk about for one of those suggestions you asked. But I just don't know what to do with this manuscript that I've written, how to proceed from there. And now I've written it after 3 years, but I still feel like, where do I go from here? Yes, I'm praying. I'm praying about it, and I know God will direct me, but I have to be confident enough to trust in what I'm hearing and now move forward. So that's where I'm at with my process.
Yes.
Well, Peggy, definitely, feel free to send me an email, and maybe we can schedule a time to talk after the first of the year. And, I don't have any magic bullets, but at least I can make some ideas, suggest some ideas.
And I want to thank you too, Brent, because you have confirmed a lot of things that I was already thinking. And I just want to, you have, confirmed them tonight. And I want to thank Brian also, because just like you, Peggy, I was also burnt a lot in the beginning. I'm still getting emails because I have self-published books on Amazon, and I get calls, but this platform has helped me to open my eyes more to those now. And I'm so thankful to God that I have, because he gives you discernment. And what I'm doing now with writing and publishing in color, I feel like this is my step through, because like I said, I've already tried self-publishing. And I got the scammers and wanting money, just like you did. And I just feel comfortable where I'm at now. I feel comfortable where I'm going. And it took me 10 years to complete my first book. And then after that, I wrote 4 books altogether. I wrote 2 children books and also 2 adult fictions. And I'm working on the third. I'm working on my grandmaster. This is my first full-length novel, and I'm really into it. And I love what I'm doing. I don't want to leave here and not say I didn't try to do it.
Hey, Barbara, I've got a question for you. After one of the conferences this fall, did you start up a small, writers group, peer group?
No, I didn't. I'm going to the writing. I've already signed up for the conference in March.
Okay, yeah. It must have been somebody else after the last Publishing in Color conference that they.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I'm anxious to get there.
Okay, sorry.
Well, and that could be, those groups like that can be helpful too. Especially if you can find one in your area or online that you can join and share writing with each other, because folks will sometimes have contacts in the publishing industry that can say, well, this might be a good fit here or a good fit there. I do know that I think it's the Evangelical Christian Publishing Association has a service called First Manuscript. Or it may have some other name now, where you can pay. I mean, this sounds like, you may think it sounds like a scam. It's not. They have a flat fee of $70 or $100, where you go through a form and fill it all out, and all their members, and it includes places like Zondervan and Baker Bookhouse and other mostly evangelical publishers, go and look for good ideas and new writers.
I think
so.
I think that's called Christian manuscript submissions now, something like that.
Okay.
But if you go either there, or if you Google that, or you go to ecpa.org, you can probably find what Brent's talking about.
Yeah.
Either way.
And I would avoid paying anybody to publish. If somebody says they want $14,000 to publish your book, they're making $14,000 and you're not going to make anything. Certainly reputable editors, if you want, there are folks known as developmental editors, and you can often find them on magazines like Poets and Writers Weekly, that advertise services that help you develop a manuscript. They don't buy manuscripts, they don't publish, but can serve as a second pair of eyes. Brian has a list of people who provide services on his website, from everything from a manuscript, just quick review of a proposal, to reviewing a synopsis and giving advice and things like that. So
under the Writer Services tab on the Writing for Your Life website is what Brent is referring to. And there's a variety of different, folks there that do different forms of editing that you could take a look at.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I think we're past our time. This has been a rich discussion, and Brent, I thank you so much for leading it. I knew that it would be, because of our previous sessions that you've led, and I hope you come back again, maybe a year from now or something like that, and we'll kind of revisit some of this. But thank you very much for that. Thank you all for joining us. And in January, we'll actually be meeting on the third Tuesday of the month instead of the second Tuesday. Sorry, I've got a schedule conflict. But that will be with the gentleman by the name of Arthur Bokless. And we're going to talk about this dilemma a lot of folks face, where the writing is either too secular for Christian publishers or too Christian for secular publishers, right? I know tons of folks have heard that. Brent, you probably have.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we'll dig into that topic a little bit next month. So everybody have a wonderful Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for spending time with me. And
thank you for coming, Brent.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm online if you want to get a hold of me, brentbill.com.
Okay.
That's
great. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Awesome.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.